3, 2, 1.
I think we're live, yeah. Hi, folks. Welcome to the episode 9 of the GSP podcast. I always have to think about that one. We have a few topics to talk about today. As usual, we're just going to bang straight into them and just bash it back and forth. So the first question came from YouTube, actually, on our last video. And someone asked about our thoughts on starting Strongman in their 50s. So we had a bit of a creep on this person's YouTube channel because they have a load of videos up there. Actually, quite a strong person, has, by the looks of it, experience in powerlifting.
Yeah.
And got some decent numbers. Like he's pulling and squatting over 200 kilos. I see him doing active press 90 kilos. Like to this person specifically, I would say just do it.
Yeah.
Just get into it. Like there is the INSF. He said he's a natural powerlifter. So like there is the INSF route.
Yeah.
You could start with one of the lighter comps. Nationals is too late for that anyway this year, but there are plenty of other comps throughout the year that we're going to have that would be suitable for a natural lifter in their 50s. Now, Masters and Strongman starts at 40, so he could be one of the oldest people in there. But looking at his numbers, he could compete.
Yeah, strong guy.
Absolutely. Like he was doing some strongman stuff anyway, wasn't he? Like the stones and some axle pressing. He has the base there from the powerlifting anyway. Yeah. So he's like leaps and heads. But yeah, if he was talking about himself personally, or anyone that's kind of been in, who's in strength sports or sports still even at that age, and they want to give strongman a go, there's no reason why.
There's no reason why, no. Yeah. And like for somebody and this nearly goes across the board. If you're coming from powerlifting and you want to get into strongman, start small. Start with some sandbag carries. It doesn't have to be very fast. You just have to start moving.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest issue.
And the biggest issues, and like I said, a farmer's walks, and I'd start light and just do some long distance carries and try and work some speed in there, and eventually get to the point where you can go heavy for them. And it's not just like it's not like even this guy, he's well able, he's strong, he just has to get moving. He might be moving already. We don't actually know that he's not moving or doing moving events. Just hop into a comp, give it a crack. There's nothing going to stop you. Like at the highest levels, then if you're looking that far ahead, OSG now do a 50 plus masters. So you got masters from 40 to 50. And then you've got masters from 50 onwards. So there's another category there for the people that are
on an international level,
more advanced, I suppose, than just masters at 40 plus. We don't have that yet at national level, and I don't think it's and maybe in America, but it's not in Ireland. I don't.
We
think
don't
it's
have
in
the
UK.
numbers at the moment. I don't think for
no.
Do you know? So and a lot of our, I suppose a lot of any of the lads that are competing at 40 plus, if they're not in masters, they're in opens. If we have any of them, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's still such a small community here. You couldn't warrant, I suppose, having the 50s.
No, I don't think you could in Ireland yet. But yet, hopefully down the line we could.
Exactly, yeah. It's the way we want it. We want it to grow that way. So, I suppose then from the other side of it is if you were talking about people generally who may not have done strength sports or not be involved in any of the sports, is starting strongman in your 50s. Is it possible? And absolutely,
it is, yeah, of course,
absolutely. Like I've had the pleasure of dealing with some masters women, and one of them who I did a post there on GSP, who is well into her 50s, has recovered from a serious health issue, and she did her first strongwoman competition last year. And she had only gone into a gym to do some weight training like the 12 months prior to that. And now she's firing away with me. Last night, she was doing 100 kilo deadlifts for sets of 2. Her bench, she did 42.5 for, these are weights, and I think 70 or 80 kilos up on her squats. So she is more than capable of doing more strong woman competitions as she goes along. And like I said, she's well into her 50s.
She's just good.
And she's really good.
She's very good, yeah.
She's so,
and I think the important thing as well to note is that she's still progressing.
Exactly.
You can make progress in your 50s.
And we've talked about this before about lifting age versus actual age.
Yeah.
So there would have been a woman I had in here a few years back who was also in her 50s. You remember the lady whose daughter also came here, who deadlifted like 100 kilos, like after 8 weeks of working with her, and it wasn't a dirty 100 kilos. Anyone who knows us and knows this in particular knows we're very technique driven. So there is no reason, and that's from a women's perspective. So, and I'm talking about women who are going into menopause or have gone through menopause, and we're still working away. So there's no reason, I don't think, why men can't start. And if nothing else, for their health. Increase in testosterone levels, I think, is a really plus side of that, especially for men as they get older. And bone density for all of us,
keeping the body moving as well.
Keeping the body moving.
Because what you'll find as well is in the woman you're talking about, like, I know from watching and seeing the progress she's made with you, she had very poor mobility and stability issues. It wasn't just one, it was kind of both, wasn't it? Like, and I seen her squatting with a bar in her back there a couple of weeks ago, no problem, and she's doing split squats now. And I'm like she's come on leaps and bounds in her mobility and stability and strength throughout her whole body. That can only improve your daily living, your life, your day-to-day functions. Like, surely that just makes life easier for you. As time goes on, she's probably sore leaving here or sore the next day, but in general, I would say her life has probably gotten easier. She can probably pick up groceries easier. She can probably just move around better.
So, and I saw a funny, like a post there. It's been popping up a couple of times. Is I'm not working towards my beach body. I'm working to my 70-year-old getting out of bed body.
Absolutely.
And do you know what? Like that has to be the okay. You know, if you're going to our level, then we start getting a bit broken up. but generally,
but eventually, you guys are going to have to include myself. I'm probably closer there than you are actually. But eventually, you have to start thinking of what am I going to be like when I'm older, and you do start training for health. Now that might come for 20 years for you.
I think,
but eventually you're going to have to think that way.
But like, I think for myself, I think of my mum was eventually diagnosed when she was 42 with rheumatoid arthritis and was told that she'd be in a wheelchair within 10 years. Like, she's not in a wheelchair. You know my mum, like she's 73 now, but she has serious joint and issues. She's still nowhere near as bad as what like a lot of other people would be. She did keep herself going, but I look at that and go, I do not want to be in that situation.
No.
And I want to be able to be motoring along when I'm 90 and whatever, and still, you know, where is she? She's up a mountain somewhere. They've always said that, up a mountain in Machu Picchu, that you're looking for me rather than me stuck in a chair. And not being able to, you know, like move around properly. And I think that's one of the biggest things. So even aside, so I know we've kind of gone away from the strongman side of things, but strength training itself is
so beneficial.
So beneficial to people. So, and then if you could find a bit of joy out of it and go and do some strongman competitions, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, like, again, like I definitely have a little bit of bias here, but I think it comes with good reason and, you know, an educated thought in it. Like, say the guy in question here that asked about it, if you're just doing powerlifting, you still are at risk of becoming static, right? You can get caught up in doing heavy lifts, and you can be good in them planes of motion, and you might be a strong 50-something-year-old, right? But if you include some strongman training into your program, you're now increasing your cardiovascular health. That's good for the heart. It's good for your day-to-day. It makes it easier to walk up a flight of stairs. You know, and all the little daily little bits, it will help with all that a little bit more. Because again, with powerlifting, you could be moving decent weights and you could be mobile through certain planes, but you could be really shit at everything else, and you might be fit enough to walk up a flight of stairs. Like, we know super heavyweight powerlifters in the 30s that can barely do that, that struggle with that.
Exactly.
Which, you know, a good strongman shouldn't.
No.
You know, they really shouldn't. Like, so that's where the strongman style training, I think, as you get older, could be far more beneficial from that point of view.
Exactly. Yeah.
And again, it's not to the extremes. It's, even if, like I said, it was just doing a bit of farmers and sandbag, that'd do a massive amount for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I think as well, just like, even if you're in your 50s, just because if you're getting older doesn't mean you have to get old. Which is, I think, just that, like, from working in healthcare for like 4 years, I think that's one thing I learned, because I met like one guy, he was like 83 and he had like a full hip replacement, but he started doing Tai Chi and yoga when he was 60.
Yeah.
And usually for somebody that age, to get their hip removal, they're going to be like bound to a chair or a bed and not going to be able to move. Where I think after like 6 weeks, he was back walking up and down the corridor, just as in frame by himself, nobody with him.
Wow.
And the doctor told him if he hadn't started doing like exercise at that age, he would have been like completely crippled. Like, so anybody can make an improvement at any age. Like, and I think just some people think when they're getting older, it's like they accept getting weaker and getting like less mobile, and they think, oh, that's normal.
Yeah. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, that's literally just part of life. But you could easily avoid doing that with just like a little bit of care.
Like when I was doing the active retired in here, and by week 4, and they all wanted to do it, they were doing farmers walks. Like, now they weren't tearing along with massive weight, of course, But
It was
they
empty
loved
farmers,
it.
was it?
And it was like, this was 60, 70-year-old women. They're empty farmers, doing rack pulls, doing, do you know what I mean? Like they were happy out doing stuff. And it was literally, you could see the improvement in the mobility. You could see the improvement in the general overall well-being. So again, that's something, like you said, it will carry over to you. And I think a lot of it is, again, we always kind of harps back to it. Sometimes it's mindset. If people want to, sometimes it's easier to go, oh, I'm old, so therefore I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
Or that, you know, I should be minding myself because I'm getting older. That is exactly how you should be minding yourself, is being more active and getting out there and being active and keeping the bones moving, keeping the muscles strong. So yeah, anyway, 50s, 60s, 70s, give it a rattle.
Yeah, I think that is the message, really, isn't it? That if you're thinking of starting Strongman and you're in your 50s, just do it. Just throw yourself in there. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? You don't enjoy the competition and you don't do it again.
Yeah.
You don't enjoy the prep for it. And you're like, this isn't for me. You don't have to do it again. And there are them, like, we'll be doing first timers comps later in the year. Dave Warner's doing a New Bloods up the north. There'll be other first timers comps around, which will all be fairly low level, entry level as far as weights go.
Yeah, I think Fringy's doing one, isn't he?
He is actually in Cork.
Down in Cork as well. So.
And then there's the INSF stuff if you want to just stick to the natural route. And again, like there's some fairly, you know, the Battle of Clara one we have on in April.
Yeah.
That's fairly low entry level. Like it's looking at trying to bring newer people into the sport, and it's perfect for someone like this. So yeah, I think just find one of them, throw yourself into it, see if you like it, and if you do, sure, look at climbing the ranks and look at climbing the competition ladder as time goes on. But yeah, get in there, have some fun with it. Yeah, I don't see why not. So we'll move on to the next one.
Yep.
Okay, so next one is a question that came into Cilléin actually. It was how long to rest between sets and distract. So it's kind of, let's break this down a bit. So how long to rest between sets, distractions, and efficient training for busy people. So I'm assuming this person needs to get their sessions done kind of quickly.
Yeah.
They don't want to be distracted and they're trying to figure out how much rest they need between sets. Would that be a fair
good way to say it,
estimation of what's going on here?
Yeah.
So yeah, I start with the rest between sets.
Yeah. So I guess I know for me anyway, I don't like to go. I think 2 to 3 minutes for compound movements. I think that's especially like if you're trying to increase your cardio, especially for like strongman, like because things be quite high paced and stuff like. So I can, me personally, 2 to 3. If you had a heavy set, maybe like closer to 4 to 5. But then when it comes to the accessory work, I try to keep it about 40 seconds to a minute.
Yeah.
And again, just to kind of like build up that endurance, because especially when you're doing like events where you got to be dealing with like multiple different things, you're using a lot of different muscles. So even doing like supersets as well, great beneficial. Like don't be afraid to actually bring the intensity into your accessories.
Yeah.
And because you get a lot of people who have that bad mentality of the fat, lazy strength athlete who takes fucking 20 minutes in between sets and stuff like. So it's just, you don't have to be that person.
No, not at all. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, really. Like you can speed up your rest in between sets. I see some people, and like I don't see it here really in fairness, but like I see people places resting like 10, 15 minutes between sets. Usually just means you're out of shape.
Yeah.
In fairness, like
no, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, the exception to that most of the time is wrapping your fucking knees when you're squatting. Because that's just it actually drains you and takes so long, and especially if you're wrapping yourself. Like I see like Dave at the moment, he's getting ready for comp and he's wrapping himself. That shit takes a long time. And then like you're done with your set, you have to get the fucking wraps off. You got to wrap them back up again. Then then your rest starts really. There's all the time in between, and that's not actually rest because you're doing shit like you're trying to get ready for the next one to happen. That's the biggest exception. And then sometimes I suppose suited deadlifts. But assuming this person, I don't know who they are, isn't in a suit or isn't wrapping their knees, like 3 minutes for most compounds, unless you have an exceptionally heavy session.
Take a bit more time.
Push it up to the 5 minutes. And like if strongman is the goal, you do want to be in shape. Shows are being ran extra quick now. We're doing it ourselves. We've seen our Giants Live, Ireland's Strongest Man. They were all very, very fast shows. So you got to train at a faster pace now.
You got to get used to it.
A 10-minute like rest in between sets isn't good enough because comps aren't ran like that anymore.
No.
The game is kind of changing, so you gotta go along with it, really, don't you? Like
even if you're at like a novice intermediate level, you still need to be at that pace.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think anything less than that. Sometimes I see people very fast in between and that has a real negative effect. And I think I see it particularly in like overhead and upper body work. and particularly in women.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're failing, and like it's because you haven't given those muscles will literally just stop. It's not like a squat or a deadlift. You might grind out of it and get away with it. The upper body is, I think, I myself between 3 and 4 minutes, I think, for most of my sets.
And again, I think like you got to look at the person, you got to look at the session when you decide how much rest kind of to a degree. Because like if you've got, I don't know, Cilléin, you've got 75% push press for fucking 5x3. You'd find that relatively easy. Your technique is fairly down.
Yeah.
You can kind of just focus on getting through your sets. Now, someone who's a bit newer, who's still trying to figure the technique out, I would say maybe they need a little bit longer rest if the weight's relatively heavy for them, because there's a lot of thinking going on. There's a lot of stress. So when they come out of that set, they probably need to break down what they've done mentally and then try and maybe talk to their coach and then figure out what they have to do next. Might take a little bit longer. But that's kind of an exception to the rule there as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
That is it's a good point as well, because that's probably like, even with myself now, if I'm trying to not learn a new technique or trying to relearn something, like with the axle press more recently, and trying to work around the issue with my elbow and my wrist, I've literally done my set, videoed it, stepped back, looked at it, I'm processing what it is I need to do, going through that in my head. So it might be taking me 4 or 5 minutes before I get back in to go, okay, tick, 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 all the boxes. But no, generally, if it's something you're comfortable with, that movement,
you bang away.
Bang away at it, yeah. And like there's a lot of people sitting around, and like a lot of the time people, they'll be 10 minutes between sets, right? But they're talking to someone, or they're on their phone, or they're like, again, we don't really have that here with the phones, because we don't have phones when we train. We kind of have a ban on it, like, except for taking your videos, and if you have to review that video, but you know,
we're not
that's it, like,
posting socials,
not posting on socials, not texting, you know, not flicking. And like I train in a commercial gym as well sometimes, and I see people literally in between sets pull their phone out. They flick for a while. They'll do another set of tricep push downs. They'll flick their phone for a while, and it's crazy. Like, you're not training.
No. Like there's a big difference between going to the gym and training.
And that's going to the gym.
There's so many people that just go to the gym to just like do a few sets in the machine, fucking texting, talking to people, and just like 8 months could go by and they've made no progress because they're not actually training. They're just going into the gym.
And I think understanding, okay, for some people it's that social outlet, but if you are actually serious about wanting to, even not in a competitive perspective, if you're looking to get body changes or health changes,
just make gains in any way.
Just make gains in any way, then you need to have your focus on what it is you're doing. And I suppose that's where distractions then will come in. One of the biggest distractions.
Can I just go back to rest between sets, actually? So, like, we're used to training fast and competing fast, and that's kind of how we do things. For someone who's not in shape right now, 2 to 3 minute rest in between sets, and you're doing, say, you're one of them 5-10 minute people between sets of push press or squats or whatever, start breaking it down. Take a minute off every week. Take 30 seconds off every week until you get down to the point of being quicker with your rest in between sets. You can't go from 10-minute rest down to 3-minute rest. So just to cover our angles there now before people think we're fucking crazy. Start taking 30 seconds off every week. It's going to take some time, but like Rome wasn't built in a day.
No, exactly.
So do chip away at that rest period and bring it down every week.
I think also as well, take into account how you're, like, if you've been unwell as well, if you're not feeling, you've had like lack of sleep or whatever, take that into account. Because you'll also see the people who are very highly focused and then they're kind of going, right, even though I feel like shite, I still have to do this. Like your body might be telling you need to take a little bit longer rest for a reason. So I suppose being aware of that is
that's something else to consider.
Better to get it done and be patient. In those certain circumstances.
Because that's when you could get hurt.
And you don't want that.
No, we don't want that. No, absolutely not. Because like I remember actually looking at you squatting Saturday, like you took very little rest in between sets, but you were absolutely fried. But that's how you should be.
It was.
You should be leaving that kind of. You're in a building phase. You should be leaving them sessions like that.
Has to be hard.
Has to be hard. Yeah, absolutely. So sorry, I cut into you distractions.
But basically saying that's where it was leading us into was distractions. Like if you're using your phone, like we're big advocates of notebooks, and even guys that are coming into train here who aren't competitive lifters, I guide them away as much as I can from their phones and say, right, okay, you may still use an app if that's what you want to do for whatever, but whilst you're in here, it should be a notebook. It stops you from flicking. It stops you from seeing a message coming from work or your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, that's going to distract you. So I think the phone is one of the biggest distractions.
Totally,
And if you're using it for music, put it on flight mode.
Put it on flight mode, yeah, and just leave it down.
Simple.
Yeah.
Put it on flight mode. It's so simple.
Yeah, you can get headphones. You can skip the song by pressing on the headphones.
Yeah.
So leave the phone away.
So you don't need to have that phone in your hand.
Yeah, because I remember you said something actually a while ago where it was like, if you were on the GA pitch at training, you're not gonna be there with the fucking phone in your hand.
Absolutely not. Oh,
You're
could you
training.
imagine?
You're training, like, and it makes
Yeah.
it's like I remember it was kind of such a mind blow. It's like it's so fucking true. Like,
Any field sport, any
Any
sport,
field
like
sport,
Could you
yeah.
imagine being up like at fucking Galwegians there playing rugby or
or playing
down at
tennis.
Liam Mellows
Yeah.
playing
Hang on a second,
hurling?
I just
And
need to flick.
hold on, I have to go to a call here halfway through training. You'd be told to get the fuck out of
and
here.
rightly so. Like,
And rightly
yeah.
so. So for someone to think it's okay to send a message while they're athletes that are actually training for their sport, strongman, powerlifting, whatever it might be, if you think that's good enough, it's not good enough.
No.
Like,
No.
your focus should be on what you're doing.
Yeah.
If it's a piece of paper, you have your session wrote on, or you've got a notebook, it's you and that piece of paper and your bit of kit for the session, and that's it.
And see, the other side of that is, because I always said this, right? Can you imagine if you're there and you're under heavy squats or a heavy bench, and next thing you got bing bing, you got the message coming in because you
It's so off.
what the hell? Like your focus, it probably more so than any other sport, is to not die under that weight. You know what I mean? It's to not
You don't want the phone to ring
Yeah,
while you're
exactly.
fucking in the hole with a heavy
the
weight.
boss or the missus. You don't need that. Like, so definitely flight mode if you have to have it for music, and don't have it if you don't use music when you're training. Then don't have it.
Here's another, like, just keep coming out with more shit to distract people, right? Smartwatches. I've literally seen people see messages on their watch while they train. So it's like, I've never seen it here, but it's like, okay, now you've got your fucking smartwatch, so you can still see your messages. It's still a distraction. Get rid of that fucking thing, like.
Yeah.
So it just takes you to see one message, and then that message will be playing in your mind while you're training, when you should actually be focusing on what you're doing.
So now you're given 70% instead of 100%.
Yeah.
If it's something that's
And see, the issue you have there as well is a lot of people have smartwatches for fitness, right? So they want to see their heart rate and everything else. But again, unless you can mute or
Switch it off,
offline, so you're just getting your health notifications, you're still being distracted. So it's not actually any good for your health. Like, I think it's a load of bullshit, to be honest.
absolutely same as that.
Like, if you really want to have some form of a health monitor, I don't know, you can get the straps,
The polar straps.
yeah, or even you can get the polar watches. So it's literally just a fitness device. It's not. You don't fit it up to your phone or anything else. All the scam lads, basically. So you're completely wired into the internet all the time. So it's a massive distraction. And
and again, that's your waste of time right there.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to be efficient with your training, you're trying to be quicker, you gotta get rid of them distractions.
Because that could be the difference between winning and losing the competition.
Absolutely.
Like,
Before we ever opened this gym, like you were there as well, I trained in Galway City Gym. I was very, in fairness, I was rude, but it was rude because I wanted to get the best out of myself.
yeah.
I used to the old wire headphones before the old fucking wireless ones. I'd have them in my head and I'd put it down through my t-shirt, but I'd leave the wire dangling at the bottom. And when someone would try and talk to me, I would blank them and pretend I was listening to music.
even though
You could see, I was showing people that I didn't want to talk to them.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing, like, because I wanted to focus on my training. And that was it. Like my focus was, I'm here to train.
Yeah.
I know, like, a commercial gym could have 30, 40, 50 people in it. Like, and I was just trying to ignore as many people as possible so I could just focus on what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like, that was my way of telling people to fucking leave me alone, basically. Without having to say the words.
Yeah.
And I literally would, someone try to talk to me, I'd just turn the other way and pretend I couldn't hear them. Like, I was so rude. But like, and people kind of understood then that, like, because again, it was a commercial gym. People were just training normally. And they kind of understood then that once I'd have my heavy stuff done, my squats and deadlifts, I'd chat to people like I would for a few minutes. It'd be fine. Like,
once you get the main work.
Once I got the main work done, because like you didn't want to be the wanker in the gym either. Like, but during my heavy work, I just had to be like, you had to be.
Yeah. Had to get the job done.
Had to get the job done. So like, if you have to put your head like, and again, now you have wireless headphones that actually aren't annoying. I like these little ear pod things. They're fucking brilliant. Like,
You're welcome.
Thank you. They're brilliant. Like, and when I train down there on City Gym, I just stick them in. And I actually don't hear people. I actually don't hear people. But they're great, like, for just working away. And if someone does try and talk to you, you genuinely can't hear them. If you don't see them, sure, whatever. That's you didn't hear them. They see you have your AirPods in, and like, it's just I go in there and I get my actual lifting done in less than an hour all the time. Because I just go in and I have my headphones in. I don't chat to people. I don't have my phone with me. I blast away, and that's it. And that's sometimes you have to be rude for your own good. A bit selfish. You have to be selfish for your own good.
I think that's the biggest point there is the selfishness of it. And like, I won't even make eye contact with people. Like even in
Just
here,
avoid-
Oh
yeah,
God,
yeah.
we know that.
like but everyone knows that in here. Everyone knows when if it's a tough session or from heavy stuff, just leave me be.
Yeah.
And even now, like the only commercial gym I didn't really go into is Galway City Gym, and people know there as well. So it's not. And then I'll have like that. I'll have the chats afterwards. Once the work is done, then fair enough. But other than that, it's like I'm here training to do these things because I want to be the best at what I'm doing. So if I'm going to be sitting and talking shit with someone and then, oh, hang on a minute, I've got to now go and squat 180 kilos for whatever, that doesn't work. My brain doesn't work that way.
No,
I'm now relaxed and I'm
Yeah,
chilled.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
fuck
yeah,
it. The last
fuck
thing I
that.
want to think about is training.
No, you're not
So I
focused
know
on
where
what
my
you want to
focus
be doing.
has
Like.
to be.
Yeah, no, that's some really good points there. Like, and I think that, like, I'm all for people having a crack and having chats and stuff, but get your training done.
Yeah.
And do it afterwards.
I'll throw enough one out there.
Hang around for 15 minutes and chat to people.
What about
chat to people.
training partners as distractions?
Get rid of them if they're a bad
If
distraction.
they're bad distraction, if they're not pushing you, like if you got a training partner and they're just fucking just talking shit, like that isn't
Just get rid of them.
Like we've kind of gotten it down to the rule here that even if we are talking, it's predominantly we're just talking about training.
Yeah.
That's the only talk. Like once you kind of start hearing people talk about fucking other shit, it's just like cut that out. Like
Yeah.
So in here, it's just like if you're going to talk, it's going to be it better be about the fucking session you're doing now. Or like talk about like fucking competition or something, but it has to be relevant to training. Like,
Yeah.
You don't be going to the gym and like hearing some fucking stupid drama, like somebody done something and all that shit. Like,
We don't actually care.
No.
End of the
No, we
session,
don't,
though,
yeah,
if
we
you want
don't.
to talk shit,
Yeah,
that's what we always
yeah.
said. The end of the session,
Yeah.
at the shut up, go outside,
that's it,
talk
like,
shit.
yeah.
And absolutely hang around at the end, have a chat, fucking
Yeah.
flick the kettle on, lads.
Yeah,
I don't give a fuck, like, whether you're
Yeah.
eating your food or your post-workout, like.
We're not saying to be antisocial. We're just saying, fucking just do your training.
Yeah,
first,
and in fairness, like we sound like a bunch of antisocial cunts, actually, don't we? But we actually we get our training done, and we do socialize. We go for food every now and again, and we all go for drinks, and we all hang around talking shite as well here an awful lot of the time afterwards. Like, and that's important too. Like, we're not a bunch of hermits that just come in here and fucking get our shit done and leave and don't talk to each other. Like,
So we had pizza party when he was over at Giants Live. We had the big screen up and everything. So
yeah.
it's not all about it's all about lifting still. I
Yeah,
suppose.
but when you're training, you're training. I think
That's
that's the message.
the biggest thing.
When you're training, you're focused and you're training, and that's it. Like.
And I think that's the benefit of having like-minded people around you. It really makes a big difference. Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. So just, I suppose, to do a recap of this question
But
here.
we
like,
didn't get the rest of it, was it?
no, efficient training for busy
busy
people. That
people
kind of
then.
cover that, didn't we?
efficient training times, yeah.
Efficient training times.
Yeah, I think it was training times.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah,
right.
so like
So we
how
kind
long time period in
Oh,
the gym.
it depends on what you're doing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Like in fairness, we've reduced our event sessions down an awful lot just by speeding things up, though. We haven't took anything out of it. We just sped it up.
Yeah.
So, like, do you know what this person's goals are?
No, I think they're just kind of just getting involved in
Strongman.
yeah.
So I would say if you're just doing an upper body session, you could have it done in an hour to an hour and a half. If you're busy, there's no reason you couldn't get that under an hour.
Yeah.
As you said, reduce the rest periods, superset all your accessories basically, but be smart with how you do that. Don't like superset your dumbbell pressing with your tricep push down. That doesn't work.
No.
Use antagonists. So, or like even it could be biceps and triceps superset. It could be side lateral raises superset with face pulls or something. Set it up kind of cleverly so that you're not shooting yourself in the foot.
Burn yourself out.
Yeah, you're not supersetting your military press with your dumbbell shoulder press or something like that either. Like, just be a bit clever with it. Like,
What would you say? I know I've had this before, where you would have people who, say, if they're working in the fitness industry, for example, and they're trying to train in between clients or classes. How do you feel about breaking sessions apart?
I don't like it at all.
I don't like the idea of it.
No.
I've heard some people do it, like, but I
You see,
don't.
the problem there is not only are you probably not getting two quality, because if you're doing that, say 3 times a week and you've got 4 sessions a week, now you're training 7 sessions. Don't tell me you're doing 7 quality training sessions.
No.
You're not. You're better off sticking to your 4 and doing them well and staying in the gym and doing it right. The other issue with that is say today you're doing squats, right? And you get 3 exercises in and you're like, fuck it, I'll do my lunges later and I'll do my upper back and my core work and my event. Well, when you should be recovering, now you're going into bashing yourself again with more exercises. Now your recovery is pushed off for another fucking 24 hours before, you know what I mean? Like, so when you should be recovering from the previous workout that was really hard, now you're actually bashing your body again with hard exercise. So when are you recovering? Then you're probably going to have to train upper body the next day. There's no long period of not doing anything, which is good. unless you go in and do a half-hour session and it becomes active recovery because you're not
doing anything.
not doing anything right, or you don't have the
Yeah.
energy from doing training earlier.
It's too
like,
spread out.
it's too spread out, yeah. So from a recovery point of view, no, it's not good. And then from a quality point of view, I can't see it being good either. I think
it's more of a mental thing. So I did have a client who was like that, where she was training in the morning time. Like she was very busy and stuff. So what she would do is she'd have like her first like 3 sessions during the week, and then on the Friday when she had a bit more time, she would just take all the exercises that she didn't do from like her upper body session, her back session, her press
Like
session,
hybrid.
and then just like put it all together. And I was just like, I was trying to explain like how useless it was, but she was just kind of saying for her it was more she had to do it mentally to kind of give her the confidence that she's done work. But I was just like, it's not really doing anything for you.
productive.
It's not productive
Okay,
at the
so-
same time. Like, yeah.
Like, okay, then another one here. So would you say that somebody's really, really busy and they've got a family, big job, all this stuff, right? And they could definitely commit to 2-hour sessions a week, but they might not be able to, they might be able to fit in a 45-minute or something on a third session.
What I would do then is just prioritize a few movements.
Yeah.
Do them really well, get everything out of them.
Yeah.
And then that's it. Like that's all you can do.
But
just move on
understanding,
from
I suppose, for them that's not ideal
Exactly.
For what they're doing.
for if you're wanting like bigger goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, look, if you want to be great at any sport or you want to really excel in any sport, you're not going to do it in 5 hours a week.
No.
You know, you're not going to be a great rugby player. You're not going to be a great tennis player, great golfer in 5 hours a week. It takes much more. And it's the same thing for strongman and powerlifting.
Yeah.
I think sometimes there's the attitude of, you know, we can do this in an hour because like typical bodybuilders will train for an hour. They'll get in, hammer themselves.
Totally different.
But it's totally different. And they want to get fed then so they can start growing. It's totally different. You can't treat it that way. And like, if you want to really excel at this sport, it's not just the hours you put in the gym. Say you manage to get your gym down to 6 hours, which you could do 2, 1 and 1, 2 lower, you know, 2 hours for your lower. We've often done really good sessions in that time, like, and you know, an hour each for your upper sessions. You know, you could get it down. That's 6 hours, but you're not finished there.
No.
Then there's all the nutrition. Then there's the mobility and the, you know, the active recovery and stuff that you should be doing after that. So like, I think you have to understand where you're going and understand that like, if you can't put in all the work around that, you're probably not going to get to a great level.
Where you want to be. Like.
That you are where you want to be.
Yeah.
You're not going to get 100% best out of yourself. It takes an extraordinary effort to really excel and to get to really hit your peak. And like, you both know exactly what that's like. And you've put a lot into getting to where you are. You've put an awful lot into getting where you are. It's not a normal effort.
No. But if you're the everyday, if you're just doing it just because you want to stay fit and healthy, like that's grand. Like
100%.
Like,
if you're recreational, like, or
you can work your way around it.
Like, even if you do want to compete at a national level, that's fine. But you have to understand that maybe if you're not, you know, at the top of that, or if you think you could be doing better, it's the effort around the training as well that has to go into it.
Yeah.
It's that extraordinary effort like that you kind of need to put in. So I just think that sometimes people need to be realistic with what they can give and what they're going to get out of what they can give. It's a tough one, really, isn't it? Like, but
Hope that.
does that
Hope that answers the
I hope
question.
that answers the question. Or have we gone way off track here, lads? Have we? So yeah, like, I suppose how to rest between sets. We touched on that, distractions. So like, if someone is really busy, yeah, you can bring your session times down. I'd focus on the main things, superset the accessories, reduce your rest periods, and have no distractions, be it people or phone or any kind of technology. Is that kind of, we're all on the...
Yep.
Yeah, we agree with that.
That's kind of, that's that last half hour, narrow it down into a sentence, right? It's, I think we could go on about that one all day long.
Yeah, we won't move on.
We won't move on. Next one. Okay, all right. Okay, so the next one is the difference between someone who's been playing competitive sports since childhood, and is now doing strongman versus people who picked up strongman in adulthood with little to no sporting background.
Was this a question that came in?
Question that Cilléin got as well. Cilléin's coming in with all the questions this week.
He's making them up himself.
Yeah.
I'm
not that
Is
smart.
this about you?
Yeah.
I think this is a very interesting one, actually, because I do see massive differences
I do as well.
in how people move when they first come in, which you now see more of than I do.
Yeah.
And in how they in coaching them as well, even when they get to a decent level. But yeah, we're like, what do you see from the get-go? What do you both see from the get-go?
I say you two probably got more experience in this than I would.
Oh, once we start talking
we'll
about
talk
it,
about it,
you'll have seen plenty of it. Like,
I think one of the first things I could do when I have new people coming in, I'm not even talking about athletes, but even athletes, but anyone coming in, is I get them to just go through basic movements. And it's normally really easy to tell somebody who has not played some form of sport or wasn't very active as a child, climbing and swinging and stuff. And I remember one particular person I had come in, and it took me, I'd say, the guts of almost a year to get her to be able to squat properly. Purely because, and she admitted herself, as a child, she was never really active, never really outside, never played sports. Even when school, she would avoid them. No interest whatsoever.
so no coordination. That was an
No coordination. And the simplest movement of a hinge that we learn, if you look at toddlers, they squat perfectly, right?
Yeah.
We're well able to squat perfectly and move, and that's our functional movement. And we lose it as we get older. But it's quite evident to see it's more the coordination, the non-connection with parts of their body, and not just even saying like, oh, connecting to a specific muscle, because for a lot of people that takes a good bit of time. But the actual hand-eye coordination, lunging, try and get someone to lunge in a straight line. It becomes very evident, and you'll get people then who will pick it up very quickly, and it's fine. Or you will have people who you'll have to take that little bit longer or extra time with them to work through it. And then it's the confidence then, because you've got an adult coming into you who's going, I can't lunge because I'm going to fall over. And you're like, no, you're not. We have a great story about that one anyway. But for them to then just understand that with that perseverance, and they get that coordination, and they get that mind muscle movement coordination going, and they're fine. But it takes that little bit longer. You get someone in who's played sport, not even to a high level, who may have just played sport in school, maybe a little bit after school, and you get them in and you can see that difference. They have a much more awareness around their body and how they're moving. They may be stiff, they may be tight from life or adulthood, but they're much more aware of how to hinge, how to squat, how to lunge. That's my perspective of it, I suppose.
I suppose they've already got decent motor patterns and decent coordination, whereas the person who has been doing sport just doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Which you'd probably notice as well, I suppose, because of that, it comes hand in hand. The person who's been doing sport is naturally just a bit stronger as well.
Yeah, they've got that little bit more of a base, I suppose. So when we're talking about here, so specifically in Strongman, if they have come from a sporting background and they come into Strongman, they're a little bit ahead of the posse, I suppose, in one sense, because especially if you're getting into push pressing and the hinge patterns and stuff like that. And
even being able to sprint.
Being able to move.
That's a big thing in Strongman.
Yeah, but it's that move, that like being able to twist and turn. Like I said, they're that little bit stronger, they're a little bit faster, they're a little bit more aware than somebody who hasn't played sport.
Yeah, and I just think, I suppose, it's just, I think the biggest difference probably from that point of view, like from a physical point of view, is someone who's been playing sport is just off to a quicker start. Would that be right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And I think like the person who hasn't played sport, it's not that you can never get to that point. You're just going to take a bit longer. Like if we get, say, a random GA player who's, played at a half decent level for the last few years, come in here, but he doesn't lift weights. And then we get somebody who's done no lifting weights and no sports. They can both get to the same place, but the person who's played sports is going to get there faster and easier. He'll be able to get into a competitive stage a lot quicker, whereas the other person's probably going to be an extra year, maybe 2 years behind them. I think that, like, would that be which?
Yeah, I think so, because again, you're then looking at the different people's genetics as well. Because you get somebody who could walk in here who never played a sport in their life,
savages.
But they come in here and then they're mashing stuff up. And then you got to wait for them to, if they really want to do it. Because do you remember a certain lady that came in here years and years back who was like, this woman could have been amazing. I don't think she'd ever played any sport.
I don't think so either.
Never played any sport. She could have made a phenomenal strongman, but didn't have any inclination or desire, drive to continue on with training, wasn't consistent. So you can have that genetic, like I said, I hate that genetic freak kind of thing where they come in and they could just pick up a barbell and be brilliant, push press straight away, but with no background. But to the end of it, those coming in with a sporting background have that quicker start most likely than than most others, but there's nothing to stop you from coming in and doing.
No,
Strongman.
like I like again, it's for anyone. Like you said about the person in their 50s earlier, give it a go. But if you've done nothing, don't expect to get off the couch and be strongman ready in 6 months' time, ready for competition. You most likely are going to need a lot more time, because it's not just lifting weights up and down either. Like you say, powerlifting, straight line stuff, you know, squat, bench, deadlift. Not to put them down, but that is a sport. It's a lot simpler. 3 movements to learn. Whereas in strongman, you've got to learn how to run now if you have never ran before.
Yeah.
Essentially, do you know what I mean? You got to learn to throw stuff. You got to learn to squat, press, deadlift as well. You know, you got to learn. There's a lot more to learn now, so it's just going to take a bit more time. I would never let it, like, if you think it's a cool sport, don't let it put you off that you haven't done anything before.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Get in and get moving, get doing something. But it's going to take more time. And again, you could start at the same time as someone else and be frustrated looking at them getting ahead of you. But there's a reason they've gotten ahead of you. It's years of work in a different area. They're still athletic, like, you know.
I think that's one thing a lot of people who, like, from the outside looking in kind of forget that, you know, like, say, like, even me, like, I started strongman when I was like 20, but I'd been in the gym for like 6-7 years before that. I'd done rugby for about 8 or 9 years before that as well. Like, so it wasn't as if it just kind of starting off from nothing, because like, even like one of my friends, he never really, he played a bit of like GAA when he was younger, but never had much experience in the gym and stuff. And he's finding it very like frustrating, especially when he's looking at like people on like Instagram and shit like that, where he's like seeing where they are now and he's realizing how far away he is from that. And I was just like fair enough, you can look at like other people for examples, but like you gotta be more realistic of your own case and just break it down bit by bit instead of like trying to look at the whole like journey that you have to do, because it can be a bit too overwhelming for some people, and then they just give up because like, oh, I'm so far away, so why even start? Like, but
take small wins along the way.
Slowly chip away at it, like.
And like I think we spoke a little about that last week, taking the small wins along the way and appreciating it, and then continuing on to the next one. Like,
and like we always kind of go around to as well, is it's that comparison. You can't compare yourself, you know, because comparison is the thief of joy. You can't compare yourself to that person beside you, not unless you're identical twins. And even then, I think there are differences that can occur. So, and that could be from a mindset. You could be physically identical, but the mindset be completely different, which will be an outcome that makes the winner or the loser. And I think that's what people need to understand. Like, it's, you might get lucky, but generally that person beside you, their journey is way different. You don't know where the background is.
I think the other thing then is, like, if you are new to it and you've never been coached before, chances are you haven't if you've done no sport. Be open to being very coachable and just doing what you're told, and ignore what you see on YouTube if you've got a good coach, kind of thing. Do you know? Because like what I noticed, and it's not an issue, like, but what's funny about, like, say yourself now, and there's a couple of others that have done field sport for years, say, in field sport, you do what you're told. Right, when you're out there on the pitch, you just, this is the job to do. You just do it, and you get it done. And as athletes and strongman now, what I find with them people is they just want their program, and that's it. And they you know, they'll take the coaching cues, obviously. They just want their program, work away. They don't care why they're doing anything. They don't want to understand anything. They just want to do. Where sometimes with the newer people, not the newer people, people that haven't maybe been coached as heavily before, they want to know the nitty gritty about everything. And again, it's not an issue, but it's just something that I've noticed before. And I don't know what that is, but it's an interesting one. Like,
it is,
I like the long people have been athletes for a long time. They just want their program to go and just do it. Tell me what to do. And I'll just do it.
I think though we kind of, this has come up before, where I think depending on how long that athlete has been in the game, they will have a kind of general idea of why you're giving them the things that you're giving them to do. And how it transfers, right? If you've got people who are particularly new and they don't know why, so they're asking, okay, I'm interested to know. Some people, it's a learning path. It's a learning pathway. They genuinely are interested. Others, again, it could be just questioning because they're not used to taking that direction from a coach. And which is an interesting point to say that about being, from a coaching perspective, I suppose, coming from childhood sports. Even that team environment, knowing how to, I suppose, interact, because effectively we are a team. If you are in a group versus if you're solo, how do you keep yourself motivated? I suppose those solo sports, you would have been, I suppose, as a child, if you're playing football or hurling or whatever it is you're doing, you're in that group setting. So I don't know. Yeah, coaching, interesting side, but I think I always used to ask questions because I was genuinely interested in programming and why are we doing this.
I think what's definitely important though is to just be open to being coached.
Yeah.
And I think if you get a reputable coach, I know it's hard to know if you're new, if they're actually reputable coaches, but if you think you found a good coach, I think let that be your one voice for a while.
Well, we said this before, like you can't go 6 weeks down the line and go,
it's not working.
Do you know what I mean?
Or
Like
I heard this on YouTube, so I want to try it.
Or
It's
such
like,
and such a person told me this.
You just need to let one person try and get it right, which I think for a good while.
Yeah.
No matter
I even know like my experience of you coaching me, even though I had a background in sports, I say it took me about maybe 2 or 3 blocks to actually fully understand and accept what you were like giving me, because I think for one was like not going all out on the first week, like working at like 60%, like say 60%, 3 sets of 8 kind of thing. And you're not like jumping straight to the heavy weights. And then the other part of it was like trying to understand the importance of actually like deload weeks, because usually it was like first deload week would be week 4, and then it was just like I thought this was the most stupidest thing in the world, because I was like, I can train, like I was just like so used to just like rugby where it's just like you just hammer every single week, like whereas if you're coming from like say like a field sport where you can run yourself every week, but like you can recover from that much quicker than you can from like absolutely like hammering yourself week in week out in the gym. Like so it is a bit of a mind fuck going from one extreme to another. But once you actually understand the importance of that, then it's much easier, and you learn how to train with it more efficiently.
And like it takes coaches a while sometimes to figure out exactly the best way to deal with an athlete, how to work with an athlete, and what works for that athlete. So even if you're brand new into it and you're just wetting your feet and you haven't done a sport before, it still takes a coach a while to figure out your mentality, how your moods are when you're in the gym, and how you react to certain cues. So like you gotta give that one person time to figure it out with you, because it doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes you'll walk in and you'll just take everything on board. Or, some people will, they just take everything on board and they just figure it out as you go, and it just clicks right away. But sometimes it doesn't, and it takes a while. And like for me, I find it takes a while with most athletes to figure out exactly what works for them. Like I've got a new one, like a relatively new person at the moment, Strongwoman. She's done quite well. We all know she's a won't mention names, but like just we're having some issues now as we're peaking for competition, where like some days are really good and some days are really crap, and there's no real explanation for it other than she's just trying to figure out how we train and get used to the training system, which is totally different to what she's done before. So it might take us a couple of blocks to really click and get things popping right. And it does take that for that time with people.
I think that's the difference between actually like coaching and just getting a program.
Yeah.
Whereas like you could just give the same fucking program to everybody and tell them to fuck off and do it. Whereas like with coaching, you've actually got to look at the person, figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then again, like figure out like what kind of variations suit them better.
And how long it takes them to recover between big lifts and when we can hit it again, and there's all them factors. Like it's so I think again we're going. Geez, we go off track an awful lot here.
We do, don't we?
but I think it's if you're new into it, Strongman, I think you listen to that one voice for a while.
And understand as well, because I know this came up recently, is if you're paying that person do you know what I mean? Like, so listen to them, take their advice, listen to them. If not, go elsewhere and spend your money elsewhere. If you can't commit to that and you're paying the money, listen to them. Like I get like I've had it before where people are kind of gone, they've taken the advice of the coach, which is me, and other people don't understand why. And the response was, well, I'm paying her for her advice. And that was the best thing I ever heard. I said, finally someone understands what it is, So, save your money if that's the case. If you're just going to
do whatever
don't
pay us and go somewhere else.
It doesn't make sense. Like, especially when it's like early in the training. Like I've had clients to come in and like, after 2 weeks, they're like, oh, like, I don't do this way, I do it another way. And I'm just like, well, if you want to do it that way, go ahead and do it. But like, this is the way I'm coaching you. So you can either do it or walk away from it.
And I think at that point, if they're not going to change their ways, it's best to just
part
ways with each other. Just break up with each other.
Just a break up.
Because it's not worth the grief, is it?
No, even as a coach, like you don't want to be taking money off somebody who isn't even doing what you tell them to do, because it's just like that's not why you do it as a coach. You do it because you actually want people to get better.
Yeah.
And you'd like, it's not worth the hassle of dealing with people like that.
No, I really don't think
No.
it is. No, it's too much of a headache. Like, and again, they're just wasting their money. So guys, don't waste your money. Like, if you're going to pay someone, listen to them. I think anything else to add to that?
No, I think we're all done.
No. I think that is us. For
No,
today.
quickly, what are you doing for Valentine's Day?
Valentine's
Valentine's Day.
Deadlifts. obviously.
Squats. What are you doing? Oh, you're just giving out to
I was
everyone.
at physio here. I'm going to give out to everyone. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
So I'm going to squat and you're going
I'm
deadlifting.
deadlifting.
It's the best Valentine's Day ever.
Give me a PB, lads, and I'll be happy for Valentine's. Yeah. It's not even happening today. Is it?
No, I was about to say, I don't. Can we?
No,
We'll get to
actually,
Costello,
no,
can you?
don't. So that's it. Thanks again, folks.
Thank you.
If you're liking the content, make sure to share it. We're getting some really good feedback, which is great. Keeps us going about it.
Yeah.
Keep the questions coming in.
Keep the questions coming in. Yeah, absolutely, because it gives us more to talk about. And we love talking and rambling on.
And I think we've done a bit of work. We're trying to get some guests on.
Yeah, we're working on guests.
Yeah.
Cilléin's actually got
Interviews.
two kind of half
Hopefully
lined up. So
We
should
won't
do two.
say who.
No.
Yeah.
And we'll figure
Figure it
when
out as we
and-
go along.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So that's it, guys. Thanks a million, guys.
Thank you very
Take
much.
it easy. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Is it number 9? Is it?
That's number 9.